Right, now that my Collagraph plate has been sealed and is well and truly dry, the ink can be applied. I use Cranfield Safe Wash inks. They are oil-based inks, but they clean up with soap and water, which is an absolute bonus. You don't have to use any toxic chemicals to clean up. Now, I always start with the colour, the darkest colour, and then once it's been covered with the dark colour in the areas that I want, you then clean it off. So this is quite a laborious process, and it's worth taking time to make sure that you don't leave too much of the ink pooling in corners or under the collage materials, otherwise it spoils the print. This is a very, very simple print because I didn't want to spend a lot of time. I can spend a whole morning inking up a plate if it's got a lot of detail and I want to apply a lot of colours. So using lots of squares of newspaper is extremely useful. Also gives your arms quite a good workout, so it works well. You can use newspaper to clean off the ink, or you can use a piece of scrim, which has a loose weave and a rough texture, and that is a good way of making sure that you get most of the surface area wiped, and where there's a texture, that dark ink will stay darker in those areas. Now this particular print is going to be just a simple abstract square. Now, having wiped off the majority of that dark ink, I'm now going to add another colour. So I'll use another brush and I will use a little touch of red. Now there'll be a certain amount of the darker blue that I put on first, which will blend in with some of the red, so you get a sort of amalgam of the colours. And after applying each colour, it then needs to be wiped off. So sounds a very wasteful process, but you do get some very nice effects from it. And if you can see on here, these striped areas where I put sort of streaks of PVA glue, because that is shiny, when I've finished inking up the bulk of the plate, I will then be able to clean those off, wipe them clean, and hopefully that will give me a good white highlight effect. So now applying a different colour again. The idea for this is that I might actually be able to have a small square of Collagraph print which I can use for a book cover for one of my little artist books. So although it is a sort of test plate, it won't go to waste. And applying the ink in this way is a much more sort of painterly approach than just whopping the ink on. So you can get quite interesting colour changes and colour blends by doing it this way. Now this particular area that I'm applying the ink to has got a piece of quite highly textured wallpaper on it. So you really do have to work the ink into every little crevice if you want to make the most of the texture of the collage paper. And I'll pull that off. Use a bit of scrimp. The colours look quite dark at the moment, but actually they print in a much more subtle way. So, just the last little bit of colour here. Going on there. There's great use of my husband's old shirts. They turn into wiping rags and cleaning up rags. Okay, so then you use a piece of tissue paper to polish the surface, and that will pick up from the areas of highlight which hopefully will print nice and white. You never quite know how it's going to turn out, so it can be a pleasant or a not so pleasant surprise. Q-tips are useful for just picking up any extras that have oozed round the sides. If you have any little pools of ink, when it goes through the press, you end up squidging it and you get unwanted blotches. So you do need to spend a little bit of time making sure that the ink is very well spread across your plate. And then a final polish, and then any areas that you want to be completely white, you can just lift the ink off them with a cotton bud. To create a highlight. Okay, so let's see if we can put that through the press and find out what it looks like. Right, so I've placed the plate face up onto the bed of my etching press. This is a hawthorn press, which is lovely. You can use smaller tabletop ones, but this is great because I can do really big prints on this. I then put a dampened but blotted sheet of Fabriano paper over the top. You need a fairly thick paper which has a smooth surface, and the dampening helps it push into all the crevices and hopefully pick up the print. It's then covered in blankets. I use 3 layers of blanket, and that means that the paper gets pushed right into all the nooks and crannies to pick up the ink. And then it goes through and then you get the reveal, which is hopefully going to be a good print. You never quite know. It's always a first print of anything shows where things need to be tweaked or changed. You can see the embossing, so it's had enough pressure to push it through, and then lift it up. So there you've got your print.